Hey you guys, this is Mark.
This is Christine.
And welcome to the Great UNLearning Project.
Yes.
I don't have the opening line anymore. It's different now.
No, I
It's
know.
a habit. Sorry about the creaky chairs. We're in the creaky chair zone.
We're in the creaky chair zone. Okay, so this is our second podcast around the UNLearning Project, and we're super excited to launch this and be talking about this and really, getting behind this movement of unlearning and just lifting all the fog that we've been carrying around. So
for a long time.
Yeah.
So it's New Year's Day as we record this. What is different for you this year than yesterday?
Well, I don't know that anything's different today. We went for a beautiful run in the trails this morning, so that was awesome. Just waking up and starting the day with some movement, some meditation, popping in here and doing this podcast. Today I thought that we could talk about what are your plans? How are you going to be? Are you going to be setting goals for 2020? I know for me, my inbox is getting flooded. My social media feed is totally flooded with people talking about setting goals and setting visions. And right away, everyone's like, what are the resolutions? What are the goals? And personally, I'm in a anti-goal, anti-hustle, anti-all that stuff mode.
Why?
So this year, I'm going to do it totally differently. Yeah.
Why?
Didn't do no more goals.
Why are you the anti-goal?
I'm the anti-goal person. Because here's what I found. I think, last year, last year New Year's, I remember making that decision to say, okay, I was so used to goal setting in the past. And in fact, last year we did this huge planning system, which the planning system still works, but after we do these other things. So what I had found was I just kept hitting a ceiling, with relationships, with work, with money, with revenue goals. It was just I just kept bumping up against the ceiling. And you and I have talked about this a lot. And it was what I kept doing was every time I would set a new goal or set a new vision, I just was okay, I'm going to set the goal, I'm going to set the vision, and then I got right to the strategy or get clear on what motivated me, but then I would get right to doing. And then it became the more I wanted to achieve the next thing, it almost became harder to it required more energy, more force, more bandwidth. And what I had discovered was last year in January when I said, okay, what got me here is not going to get me to where I need to be. So what I find happens is a lot of times we set goals or we say we want to do something and we go and we figure out all the how. But the problem with that is we are building the strategy with the identity of what we were doing in the past and who we were in the past. So everything that got us to where we were was all the thoughts, all the behaviors, all the energetic ties, all the friendships, everything that created our identity and shapes who we are. That was the individual that got me those results. So here I was as the same person with the same habits and the same thoughts and the same belief systems creating my future vision. And the reason that doesn't work is because it's like having a closet full of shit. We talk about this all the time. And you're trying to shove more stuff with the same old blueprint. And then it becomes so freaking hard because it doesn't work. What you want to call into your life isn't working with the old blueprint. So something needs to shift. So that's why. That's my big anti-goal. No goals until we get clear on what the old blueprints were.
So I just want to debone that a little bit. And
let's debone it.
It's a fun word. So what I'm hearing you say is the reason it doesn't work going into the new year for you every year is because when you're creating a goal in the mindset of basically I don't want life to be this way, so I'm going to create a goal that is
we think we're going to
different. But I'm creating that with my old
We create it with our old identity. We create it with our old energy. We create it with our old frequencies. We create with our old beliefs and attachments to things. It was actually funny. I was with a client the other day, and we were talking about his health goals. A new person that had started to work with us, and he's like, okay, this isn't my first time to the picnic, but here I go again. And he had the same old freaking goals that he had for 5 years in a row or 8 years. He's like, oh, this isn't my first time. And I was like, okay, so what do you want? And he's like, I want to be healthy. I want to do this. I want to do that. And they were just, it was how many times have you said the same goal? right? And why haven't you been hitting it? Because he's still stuck. He was still stuck in like, well, I'm inherently, like, I know you say this sometimes, but his whole thing was like, I'm lazy, I'm not motivated, exercise is hard for me, and he had like this whole list of excuses already, like that was his blueprint of why it was going to be so hard to achieve this goal. I mean, he wants it. He's ready to do the work, but he's showing up as the person who already knows, I've already done this 8 times or 5 times or whatever and failed every time. And he's still going about it the same frame of mind, the same thoughts, the same attitude. And it's already effort. And it's like, whoa, stop that. Stop the insanity of doing the same shit over and over again.
This is to me, like what you're talking about is emphasizes the importance of the need to unlearn, right? So my question that I wrote down before we got started today is, what would I have to believe? So what would I have to believe in order for 2020 to turn out just like 2019?
Oh, right? Yeah, that's a great question. Or what have I been believing? But a lot of times maybe people don't know.
Yeah, so what would I have to believe in order for this year to be just like last year? Right? Which means I effectively change no beliefs. And that's the nexus of not the nexus, but at the core of the Unlearning Project is this idea that in order to go forward, it's not about putting in new information. If you listen to the last episode, it's not about more stuff. It's not about more content. It's not about even doing more things, right? It's about unlearning the belief system that got you here.
Yeah.
It's a totally different type of work.
And I think that's why for me, like the approach this year, and now when I work with my clients, but really this is like my thing this year. And it came about last year as I realized, okay, I knew what got me here wasn't going to get me there. And I wasn't sure how to go about it. I just knew that much. I was like, I'm aware of this and I don't know what else to do with it. What I've learned over the last year, this last year, guys, has been like, for me, I don't know, it's been massively eye-opening, transformative, like beautiful in so many ways. It's been the most amazing year. Like I felt the highest highs, and I've also it's been the hardest year on so many levels as old things started to fall away. And we'll do another episode on that. But what I realized was, okay, what got me here isn't going to get me there. Now what I know a year later is that in order to move forward and call the next thing into my life, like once I decided to call you into my life, my soulmate, the first thing I did wasn't I sat down and I wrote what are my hell no's? What are the things what are the patterns? What are the cycles that I've seen in my relationship? What is the language I've seen in my relationship? What are the emotions I've been feeling? What are the beliefs I've been having around men, that just keep me sort of on this loop, right? That continuously are making me feel like shit or are leaving me feeling a certain way or keep cycling, we keep getting in arguments. And this is what are the common denominators, right? Because the truth is, and you and I were talking about this yesterday, until we're clear that we are the common denominator, nothing changes. So that was the first time where I actually didn't talk about I want another relationship, I want a better relationship. I wasn't so focused on the new relationship. I got really clear on what's been the common denominators that are keeping me in the holding pattern.
Yeah. And
then once we can see the ugly monsters or whatever we want to call them, we're not here to judge them or shame ourselves or anything, because we were doing the best we could in the past. But now I can see it, and when I can see it, I can recognize myself falling into it. And then from there, I can say, well, what would an amazing partner be like? What would an amazing relationship? And that's when I got really clear on, well, this is what I really want to call into my life. And then there was a disconnect, obviously, because I'm like, yo, my holding patterns don't match the new thing. And so then we can get to work on going, how do we upgrade, those patterns, but we have to unlearn the ones from the past. And a lot of times I find people are trying to learn all the new stuff, right? And I was doing this. I was learning, reading more books, setting more goals, doing more things, but I wasn't looking my old shit straight in the face. And so that's actually what I started to journal about yesterday morning, was okay, where am I hitting the ceiling now that I want to create space in 2020 to not have the same experience? We have the most amazing relationship. And what are some of the holding patterns that I've seen myself in, us in, in our businesses, whatever, that don't get to enter 2020 with us?
So let's get specific. So what was a belief system that you had about men before, when you kept getting results that you didn't like?
So I want to so for example, the idea of, getting really clear on what the patterns or the behaviors were. So some things were like, I constantly felt like I had always this like sort of sense of that I couldn't really trust that someone was going to be there for me, right? Like people would say stuff but not follow through. And it was a pattern. It was a pattern where people would tell me things and then not follow through. And then I would get so upset because I felt really disrespected. There was a pattern of me feeling disrespected all the time through language that was being used, right? So one of the things that I said no more is having disrespectful language in our relationship. That doesn't get to be a thing that exists in my relationship anymore. That was like a hell no pattern. That was like cycling for years, 20 years, like there was always this pattern of this type of language. And so it was like the language, the disrespect, the miscommunication, the misalignment of values, like my future values and his future values. Like there was constantly like friction, right? And whether it was my ex or whoever I was dating, it was just like we didn't have clarity in communication, right? And so it caused a lot of friction. So these were the things I didn't want to feel anymore. It was like constantly feeling frustrated in communication, constantly feeling alone in the relationship, feeling unsupported was a huge one for me, right? Mm-hmm. I've always been very entrepreneurial, super independent. I met you at a conference. I love to travel, and this was like a major issue for people in my relationships in the past, where I just didn't feel, whether they were or were, it doesn't matter, but I didn't feel supported, and I constantly felt like I was having to justify myself to my partner and defend my dreams and and I was like, yeah, that justifying myself, having to like either hide stuff because I don't want to, piss them off or whatever, like it's just dysfunctional. It doesn't get to enter the space. So had to be, we had to shed light on that before we could just start a new relationship.
So it stems from the belief. I'm trying to hone in on like what was
it's a belief. So the feeling
the
I always
start. I can't
with,
trust men.
Right. So the first place I start is always like, how do I feel? And this is for a woman. I'm very feel based, right? Or maybe the pattern is like I do this, right? We can recognize that. It's harder to understand.
Just notice how like she uses a shit ton of words to describe like all the things. Like the answer is very simple, right? It's trust. Right? But you have like this is the difference between like men and women, when the way that we describe like our experience with it is for most people it's a very different I'm like, yep, it was trust him. Like that was the belief. That was the core belief.
Well, that was one. There was
right?
a lot of core beliefs. But
yeah.
My whole point was just to help people kind of sort through it, is that what is the thing that you're constantly doing that you don't want to keep doing?
Yeah.
Or what is the thing that you're feeling that you don't want to keep feeling? And once you write that down, you could say, I feel this way, or I felt this way because, and whatever comes after because is usually the limiting belief. And then if we keep asking myself, well, and I believe that because fill in the blank, then we get to the deeper layer of that. And then if I believe that because, and that's true, because now we start getting to like the deep roots of those limiting beliefs that are going up. So it is an exercise, and that is step by step how I did it.
Yeah.
I feel this way. I do this because this is what I believe.
Yeah.
I believe I can't trust men. I believe all men are pigs. I believe that whatever, right? Men don't like independent women. They want women who are weak and they can boss around. I had all these beliefs. Trust was one of many,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, yeah.
Wow.
That's how I find the limiting beliefs. How do you find it?
So then what did you get to do in order to move past that?
So I think the belief is a big one, right? So we stare that belief in the face and we go, is that actually true? Like, is that universally true? All men. There are no men out there who, are deeply respectful and love independent women and love to co-create with them. And when you look at that belief and you're like, okay, that is absolutely, your heart knows it's ridiculous. Like your heart is laughing, going, okay, girlfriend, that is the stupidest thing, and you know it. And you know it in your heart, but then your head's kind of like fucking with you, But so the thing now is like when your heart sees it and knows it's not true, then we get to trust and surrender to, starting to create an identity. Well, what if I chose? So this is where it's hard, right? Because people write affirmations all the time, like, I'm trusting. and it's hard because it's like you don't believe it, you're subconscious. So instead of saying like I am this, what if you said, well, what if I chose to believe that, you know, there are really respectful, amazing men out there? Where would those, like, what if I chose that was a thing to believe? And then I start looking for expanders. Expanders are evidence of other men or other people or other relationships that are working really well. And I just start being curious. And if I believe that, then maybe what would I do differently this year? What intentions would I have, right? So my intentions became not about having a relationship, but about becoming a woman who spoke really respectfully, by becoming a woman who really honored men and, you know, gave them praise and like felt supported by them, like chose to feel supported by them. So I spoke in a totally different way. So just by choosing that framework, then it changes the intention, which ends up getting you the goal.
So just imagine like the experience of a man in the relationship with someone who inherently doesn't trust. Right.
And it goes both ways, right? We're using this example.
Yeah, so I'm just like, you know, making the point. So from the other, so if you've got that significant other that you're living with, and you have these beliefs that you're constantly like that are in the underpinnings, the subconscious wiring of your brain, then naturally your language is going to be in such a way where it's going to call out the evidence that you're seeking. So if the belief system is that people are not trustworthy, or people are going to leave, or people can't get shit done, or whatever, then guess what? Your attention is going to get focused on every little thing, right, that they didn't do or that they didn't follow through with, or that supports the evidence that they're not trustworthy. And then, even though they did 9 fucking things right, you focus on the one. And that's the piece where I'm talking about the unlearning piece is like, God, when did I ever adopt the belief that they had to be fucking perfect?
Because you keep giving yourself evidence of it. And like, so we're constantly focused on the contractor, like the thing that's pulling us back, you know? So versus the expander, which is like, where's evidence that the opposite is true? But I think like for the relationship, that was such a big piece of evidence for me last year. And we talk a lot about using our relationship as a framework for how to move forward, like, right? What worked, right? And so as I was thinking about this year, still hitting the ceiling on other things, right? And I know there's a huge point of transition right now in my business and stuff like that. And so I was thinking, like, instead of just jumping in and building strategies, which would be the old school operating system, right? All this, the way that I had learned to traditionally set goals, set plans, make shit happen. I'm like, well, what worked really well? What has worked really well now is just, for me, not setting goals, not, you know, doing right away, like, what am I creating and how am I doing it? But stopping right now, like, for this, like, week and really reflecting back on, what are the patterns, just like I said, like what are the beliefs, what are the things I don't want to feel anymore in this area of my life? What are the thoughts I've been having? What do I not want to keep doing in terms of repeating? And this is not to focus on the negative. This is to get real about it, because a lot of times this stuff is happening just on autopilot because we're just repeating the past. The brain's designed so we're doing this stuff mindlessly because the learning is so deeply ingrained that we're not even aware that we're talking this way to our spouse, or we're not even aware that we're doing this thing with our team or our kids or whatever. And then they're calling it out and we're like, no, I didn't do that, you know. So when we, like, for myself, by drawing radical awareness to it, it brings me much more aware during the day. I can catch myself and pivot. And as I pivot into a new intention, now I'm able to manifest what I actually desire so much faster.
So what's one of those things for you? What's a desire for 2020, for the new decade?
Well, so a desire, I'm going to say again, like, one of the things I feel like has been huge for me is we've talked a lot about building a team, building a tribe. My old blueprint was a lot of just like fierce independence, build it yourself, like you do everything, right? And I'm sure a lot of you guys are go-getters, high achievers out there, maybe suffer from the same ailment that nobody can do it as good as you, or it's your idea. And again, like, it takes so much mental, physical, and emotional bandwidth to try to do all the things all the time. And so some of the pain points for me have definitely been not holding people accountable. That's the behavior, right? My feeling is I feel frustrated. I've felt frustrated around a lot of like things happening in the business or from the team perspective or delivery of certain things. And my expectations not being met, right? So then that creates frustration and resentment. And so as I think about that is like, okay, what were the behaviors and patterns that caused me to fall in that loop? And I know one of the huge ones we talk about a lot, I have 3 teenage kids, is, getting really loosey-goosey and not holding people accountable. And again, if it kind of takes me through the exercise, like, well, I don't want to hold people accountable because I'm afraid they might not want to be around, right? If I'm truly honest, I'm afraid maybe my teenage kids won't want to hang out with me, or like, maybe there's a team member that I'm like, oh, I don't want them to go, like I want to honor them, and it gets confused. So what's really underneath it is this belief, this old operating system around loss, right? Which has exited the arena of life in the relationship, but it's still looking for other holes to come out of. And it's been looking in my leadership hole and how I've been managing my people. And so that gets to now, lovingly leave and make room for an amazing team and tribe to step up. And if that's the existing team that gets to level up and grow with me and we mentor each other like crazy, or if it's new people, but it creates a space for that. Mm-hmm. So kick-ass team. Building the dream team this year.
The dream team.
That's my desire, having a team that is energetically aligned.
The dream team.
The dream team.
I like it.
I want the dream team.
And your tribe?
I desire the dream team and the dream tribe.
Talk about the tribe.
So I think, we talked a little bit about why we get stuck in these holding patterns. And so for many people, our environment, a lot of the work that I do in coaching is about the energy of our environment, the energy of our relationships, because all relationships carry an energy to them, right? Every interaction you have is an energetic exchange. And so relationships with friends, with family, with social circles, with clubs, memberships, anything that you're part of where it's your environment is shaping you because you're constantly exchanging energy with it, and there's an energy and a meaning that you associate with it. So every time I think of X, I feel Y. I feel great, I feel expansive, or it stresses me out, or whatever, right? So in terms of the tribe, what I realized was I really, for a while, I've been such the inspiration or the coach or the leader for a lot of my tribe, whether it was friends, team members, in the past, my relationship with my partner. I was always the one trying to be the inspiration, be the motivation, be the tide that raises. And I was like, it's time for us to, we've talked about this, as we look around at friendships, really, we have some amazing friends, but we are ready to call in more of those friendships and those tribe members into our environment. So it literally just becomes like the environment we're immersed in all the time. We're not coaching to be immersed in it. We don't have to go to a conference to be immersed in it. It just becomes the majority of our environment. And when we are doing that, it doesn't matter if you're trying to get healthy or get in a great relationship. The environment is constantly affecting us. So that's the tribe piece for me, is like up leveling for me the quality of friendships and connections that we have in our life that are not necessarily work related.
Beautiful. It's fun to have a cool tribe.
That's what it means to me. What do you think? Are you on? You on board with that?
About the tribe? Yeah, for me.
And the tribe evolves.
The idea of a tribe, we were just talking about this the other day. For me, I have a lot of friends. I was updating like 500 people last night with my new phone number from that were in my contact list, and of course you hear back from people right away because you send them a text message and like, oh, happy new year, wishing you all the best, right? And so you have friends, and yet I don't have friends that call me. Right?
On a go basis, yeah.
So there's...
Or that call us to do stuff that we actually want to do.
Yeah, but literally, like, very few people actually call, and say, hey, let's go on this trip, or let's go get a drink, or whatever. I've got I think twice in 2019 that happened. Twice. And then including last night, but that was your friend who invited us to New Year's. So,
which we had a great time, by the way. That was awesome people to hang out with.
It's really nice, though, to be in a tribe where, as a leader, you don't have to be the leader.
Yes, exactly.
Right?
That's
So
exactly what I'm saying.
It's almost like an oasis. I can go there. I learn from my friends. We probably, our business owners. We probably have a lot in common that way. Like probably do some of the same things. We can, share ideas and whatnot. But it's not necessarily just about,
You're not
hanging
trying
out.
to sell or inspire or motivate.
Yeah, I don't want to be in that space where it's like I have to, like you just want that oasis. And so, for me, the belief, that you get to unlearn, and for a lot of the time for me, it's literally have the belief that, am I good enough, right? So there's this kid that grew up on a farm in the middle of nowhere. There was very few people around. You felt damn lucky when anybody came. Like I would get excited when customers would come out to the house, to buy from my parents or whatever. It was just like I was like excited for people to be there, and so that evolved over time into like, well, I mean, am I even good enough?
Am I good enough
to be around
that's interesting,
people, right?
Am I worthy enough? That's
am
a
I
big
worthy enough
belief,
to be a part of this group? And so, especially when you're trying to up level your group, so I'm a huge believer that the 5 people you spend the most time with, you become the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with, right? And so, look at the money, look at their activities, look what they get to do for a living, look what they
physically, their
do
health,
vacations, like what they look
what's
like,
their health like?
All that stuff, And if you're not a big fan of what that is for you in any way, shape, or form right now, like take a look at the people you're spending the most time with. Guess what? I can almost guarantee you that their money situation is the same. I guarantee you that their a lot of their anxieties, their fears, their worries, like a lot of that stuff is going to be the same. They probably even do something similar for a living, or they're in the same industry as you, or whatever. So that's just for me, like the unlearning, the belief that I get to let go of, and the belief, and this I've done a ton of work around this.
So the belief is I'm not good enough. So what? And then as a result of that belief, a lot of the habits or the pattern you see yourself engage in is what?
Well, you would literally just you almost don't even ask.
You just kind of like stay back.
Yeah. And I'm always the guy. But the other thing that you do, and at least I know for me, is like I will be the one who reaches out, right? Like, hey, I'm in your city, let's grab dinner, right? Or I'm in your city, let's go grab a drink or whatever. And so sometimes like that will come across to people as like you're too available.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah. Maybe there's something underneath that belief.
Absolutely.
So so this is cool, right? So we talk about how the patterns play out. And so if you chose to believe that you actually are worthy and people want to hang out and spend time with you in that level, what might a different intention be? If you knew.
Yeah, ask me your question again. I'm not sure.
So if I just assuming I believe that I am worthy, and of course people want to hang out with me because of course I kick ass, I take names. Then what? What's my intention? What's different about the way I be like?
Right. Well, and so when you operate from that energy, right, you just obviously will start to attract a different type of person.
You do.
That's just life will reflect back to you.
Become magnetic.
That space. Yeah. So that was my old operating system. My old belief system was just like I'm never like I'll even do whatever it takes to fit in, but I'm never gonna belong. Right. So there was always this, and this is old. Like this is stuff that I've even worked on before 2019. I'm starting to see like how that manifests now, which leads me to just this interesting idea around how the process of unlearning, like how it starts to show up in your life. So a lot of people say, okay, so now I unlearned the belief, now what do I do? And this is a piece where we get to take a step back and like, no, now that you've actually, if you really rewired the belief and you have changed your subconscious triggers around it, then
there's nothing to do.
There's nothing to do.
Because you are it.
Life literally will almost magically show up. I know one of my coaches that I worked with early on around this idea when I first started uncovering the idea that unlearning is a way.
You're just being
she said like you literally don't have to do anything. That you don't need more goals now. To come back to the original point of this podcast, you don't need more things to do. You don't need more stuff on your to-do list. Like because it's in your subconscious, the movie of your life is going to start to match up.
Because it's just who you become. It's just who you believe, who you be every day. It's like the person, going back to the person who we're talking about health a lot, just because health is easy to grasp for a lot of people. If you chose to believe I am someone who values their health, Like,
Mm-hmm.
it comes easy to me. If you just chose to believe that and you release this idea that, being healthy is hard and it's, you're not athletic and you're not this or you're lazy. If you just choose to believe, well, I value myself, I value my body, then in being that, you're going to be someone who naturally is going to get up and get moving. It's not like you have to set a goal to walk 3 times a week, because if I value my body, I don't set goals on walking. Walking is something that is just part of what I do, right? And so I could set new challenges for myself, but this idea of like I have to work out 3 times a week is not, it's just naturally going to happen, right? And so you can look at that, like you were talking about earlier about, oh, the fact that I'm working out every day or 3 days a week or whatever is now evidence, like, of me being in the new energy and me being in the new space, and so the goal that you may have already set, that you were chasing in the past, now just happens as a result. Not because you're chasing it, but because you're in it and you're being it. I just want to, the friendship thing, the beliefs, because I think this is cool for our listeners, is that your belief of the tribe not rising is like, I don't feel like I'm worthy, right?
Was.
And so mine was, it's funny because same idea, right? Like same idea of always feeling like I was the motivator, the inspirator, and we're both leaders. Like we've been leaders. You've been a leader for a very long time, right? In some capacity ever since youth. I've been the same from athletics, like captain of teams and stuff. And so when you're in that position, you naturally you tend to gravitate to those roles. So in your mind, you're already thinking, if it's going to be, it's up to me. I have to lead the people, But for me, my belief was more around the fact that like, there's not a lot of people who actually are like me, right? Like when we work with entrepreneurs, I do a lot of work with entrepreneurs more so than people who are in corporations. But what I feel is like, what I hear a lot is like they feel alone on an island. There's like, because it is a smaller percentage than the norm, right? Entrepreneurs, we always joke about like feeling alone on an island. No one else gets us. We're like this rare breed. And so we kind of like, whatever that, if it's entrepreneurship or you're like totally valuing your health or whatever it is that we choose to believe, we can feel very much alone and we can actually isolate ourselves, right? So that's what I was doing, is I made up this story in my mind. My belief was like, but I'm alone in this. Like there's not a lot of people out there. So I'd rather just be alone or just lead people than, engage in. And what I didn't realize again was like, whoa. There's like millions of entrepreneurs. There's millions of people who really value their health. Maybe where I've been hanging out in the past didn't match up. And, it's funny because we went to a couple conferences this year. We just went to Day with Destiny in December, and some 5,000 other people who, get excited and jazzed up about the same shit as we do. And, so it's just really building those new connections. And as we start to do that, you start to realize, oh, there's people back home that are into the same stuff as you do. And so literally, I came home from Date with Destiny. I went right to a dinner, walked in, dropped my suitcase, and the guy that was there had his like necklace, the same one that Mark has on, and have since like met 3 or 4 people that are part of that. I'm calling it a tribe, but like who are all in alignment. And it's like, once we open our eyes, we start to see it everywhere around us. I don't have to go to the conference or the special place. They just start showing up because you're in the energy of it, which is exactly what you were just saying.
Like, and if you're scratching your head on that one a little bit, like, believe me, I get it. Like, we get it. Like, it is a complete departure from the old school
model, right?
Like, learning belief system, which is I have to learn and I have to do. I have to learn, I have to implement, I have to execute. Now, I'm not saying that there's not things that you get to learn. Yesterday, I spent a bunch of time learning a new marketing software because I want to learn how to market through text message. Like that's a valuable thing that there's a time and a place to learn new skill sets,
developing skills,
whatever. And just know that those things that you choose into will start to show up in your life. Like, oh, of course, that's the next thing I need to know that I get to know in order to move to the next level, because now I've unlearned all this other stuff that doesn't serve me.
And I think it's important to make that note, like just to close my loop. And then I want to ask you about 2020, about that. the reason why I say screw the goal setting first, like screw making the strategy first, like get really clear on what those, I hate the word blocks, but people call them blocks or limiting beliefs or patterns or behaviors. We don't want to look at that side because we feel like it's the ugly side of us. Like we're like, oh, that's like the dark side of me. I don't want to look at it, And so the shadow, and I'll shove that part in the closet and I'll pretend that doesn't exist, and I'll pretend like I'm all this new person as I go about my new workout goals for the year, and the reality is, so then what happens is when we start operating in that old pattern, we don't see it. We're not recognizing it, and we're not giving it the space it needs to come up and go out, right? We're just trying to shove it in the closet in the back of the house, and eventually that shit's going to come out. Yeah. And it'll probably be like 30 days later. And then you'll be upset and you'll be like, oh, see, here I am again. Poor me. Why does this always happen? And we're going to fall into this whole like little victim pity party and feel sorry for ourselves. And then we'll get pissed off and we'll just like keep repeating the cycle until finally we learn the lesson. So I say screw the goal setting. Start by getting radically real about the blocks, the beliefs that have been holding you back. Get real so that when they show up, you can see them and start to shift the energy and the intention. And then you can set some desires and things that you want in your life and watch them show up. Yeah. And that's the fun part. That's what manifesting is. Manifesting means to make appear to the eyes what is already there, which we often can't see because we're so blinded by looking for the stuff that isn't working. So that's my plan for 2020. That's where I'm starting. And then I'm going to manifest a bunch of amazing things, which just really means just watching them all appear before my eyes, because I'll have created the space for them so we can do more episodes on manifesting. But so from your side of the coin, that's sort of like where I was at ending 2019, heading into 2020. What comes up for you in terms of how do I close last year? What is my practice for heading into this year? Do you have a ritual around it? Is that shifting?
Yes and no. I think the biggest thing for me is I'm taking inventory of what I don't want.
So similar.
The
hell no list, I call it.
It's there are some very certain things. And a lot of what I don't want has been brought about or created or attracted or whatever because I was always in achiever mode. I thought that in order to feel like I was doing something that was worthy, that I was leaving my legacy behind, that I was building something, is like you got to go at a breakneck pace. You got to build. Yeah, exactly. And
anti-hustle over here.
The downside of that, and I'm not anti-hustle, but the downside for me of that is like you leave out certain processes. You don't have great foundations in place, and so you're kind of building, but you're building on a foundation of sand instead of a solid, good old concrete rock, foundation.
You're like, I need to build a house. Give me the poles, give me the stuff, and you're just building up without digging the foundation.
So the old belief was, in order to be of service to the world, in order to be noticed, in order to get attention, in order to grow the business, in order to be respected, whatever it was, grow, and just show how much you can do. And
more.
That was, and that's something that I very consciously have left behind in last year. And so with the theme of the new decade, it being 2020, I have a very, for me, inspiring vision of what could be, especially my corporate training and coaching business in 2030. So I'm really excited about what that could be, but we'll never get there without foundations.
Those foundations.
So this year for me is about foundations. And so, what do I get to believe about myself in order to operate from a place where foundations are like foundational.
Well, and that's interesting because a lot of that leadership stuff that came up for me about what got me here isn't going to get me to where I want to be, to build the next level of business that I want to create and we want to create is like, I realized like I only got so far with our systems and processes until they started breaking down. And so that was a lack of foundations and then a lack of accountability to the foundations that we had set in place. So we had built some foundations, but like we needed to go back and upgrade them. Stick new poles in the ground, make sure everybody everything was good, and then hold people accountable to like maintaining it. And we didn't do the maintenance on those foundations, and they started to become cracks. And So that was kind of, that came up too.
Yeah, so that's, I mean, it's very simple for me. I mean, in all of my areas, personal finances, business finances, business development and marketing processes in the business, to sound like, I mean, super boring, but that is it. So here's the thing. Like, I've always thought, okay, it's so hard. It takes so much time. This is the old belief.
Right.
The old
So
belief
the
is
old
it takes
belief
so
is
much time, and it's so hard to sit down and write an email, right, each week to my list, right?
So the feeling you didn't want to experience anymore was what?
Well, not getting any interaction with my list.
Okay, so I feel disconnected. Feeling disconnected.
No, that's not entirely true. I mean, that is a true statement, but it's not necessarily all of it, right? Because when we were at Influencer in San Diego, I'm listening to Brendan Burchard talk about it. He talks about it in such a way where, he's written an email. They've put on an email to their list every week for 20 years or whatever, 15 years, however long it's been. And it's done in a spirit of taking care of his people, taking care of his followers. The energy in which he's doing the energy. And I didn't want to, and like the feeling that I wanted, that I got to let go of, is being somebody who wasn't taking care of his audience, who wasn't taking care of his followers. That to me was more powerful than any dollars or of revenue that would come by sending out a marketing email. Which
has to do with what's the intention of doing the practice anyways. So if we're thinking like, I have to send this email because I have to market, it has a really different vibe than I get to send this to have a conversation with my people.
So now it's like become this fun game. Yeah. And like the new belief is like, oh, I get to sit down and like take care of people who listen to me. And these people care about what I have to say. Like every time I send one, several hundred people or thousands of people or whatever are opening up and reading what I have to share. And I'm just sharing from the heart and just being very open and vulnerable and transparent with people about what's coming through for me right now. And the response has been really good. So I've been sitting down and I have the first 5 of them done. Because I'm just sitting down and creating that space where it feels good to be sitting down and feeling like I'm taking care of. So that's foundational, right? Like, because that's who I am. And so sometimes, because I've been operating at this breakneck pace, it becomes about paying bills. It becomes about keeping the business going. It becomes about just getting people paid, to keep things moving. And that becomes the hustle and the grind. Whereas for me, the hustle now is that I get to sit down and I get to write. Yeah. Or I get to make this podcast. I get to make time for this, for the stuff that we're doing together. I get to sit down and make time, create time, like just be in time with the people that I care about. And that got me, and that's why I got started in this to begin with. It wasn't because I wanted to grow an empire. I got started in this world of personal development because I just enjoyed helping people.
Mm-hmm. So foundations. So 2020 is the year of foundations for you. And so then what's the next step? What happens next as you do? Like, do you go out and do an annual plan? Like, what do you do with that from there? You're like, okay, this is what this year is going to be about. Yeah, so that's kind of like having a word for the year. Like, and this is another thing I do, and I know a lot of coaches talk about this as well, having a word, like what this year is going to be about, like sort of think about what was last year about, what does this year get to be about, if there was a word or a theme. So is that your word? Foundations?
It's absolutely the word.
Foundations.
And for me, it's about can everybody around me count on me as the grounding force? So
can everyone around me count on me?
Well, that's who I mean. That's who I be in this new state. Yeah. And whether you want to depend on me as your grounding force or not is fucking up to you. Like, I don't care.
So it's more about who you choose. I'm going to choose
right?
to
but
be
this
a grounding
is who I'm going to be in this space, and I'm going to be able to provide. Because I want to be in that. Like, I desire to have that for those around me, and if that's something that they want to be a part of, then they can choose into that or choose out of it. That's, all those things are perfectly okay. It's just about foundations. Like, even in my workouts, even though I don't like what you make me do sometimes, like I get the value, right, of the stabilization work, and the core
I make him do all the single leg proprioceptive core, deep core work.
But just an hour ago, before we started recording this, we're running through the woods, running on ice and snow, and I'm running with ease.
Yes.
In a space where most people be like, ooh, I hope I don't slip, right? But I'm running at a whatever, at an 8-9 minute pace without an issue, because we do the foundational core work, we do the stabilization work, we do the balancing work. And so that really is going to be the theme. So what was coming through for me while we were running is, foundationally for me, going back to my strength scope report and really looking at what energizes me and what lights me up. And really doubling down on that. So there are things. Strength Scope is a tool that I historically used in my corporate coaching business, and anybody can use it. It's
we can put a link to it.
Yeah, we can put a link to it. It's at markjeweltraining.com. You can literally go sign up and take it. It's like $100. But the whole purpose of that is understanding, like, what is your brain wired for that gives you energy when you're doing things. And two big ones that have showed up for me this year that were not on there in previous years, and they pretty much stayed the same. I took it 7 years ago for the first time, now 8 years ago for the first time, and everything is basically the same, except my life changed a little bit. I became a CEO instead of an employee. And so now the two things that were always kind of close for me were leading and decisiveness. And the thing that really came through strong for me this morning was like, no more fucking following. Right? Following what? Just that I need to step up and lead at a higher level. Like, it's like the purpose of the necklace. If you're seeing on the video, if you're listening on the podcast, is a necklace that I got from Tony Robbins. That's the empowerment necklace, which says, and the affirmation that goes with it, that says, I accept my greatness with gratitude and grace, right? I accept my greatness. And, that was a piece for me in the historically that was uncomfortable to step into, and to just stand up and say, yeah, I'm the leader. Right? Now, naturally it would happen, right? Yeah. But now
but really owning that part of yourself.
And to be willing to be decisive. Like, I'm not going to sit around and wait for anybody to make up their mind. Like, this is the direction we're going. If you want to come along, then hey, cool. Let's have a party. Let's go do it. Let's have fun doing it. But let's do it in a way that is foundational, and we're going to lead from that perspective. So that means
it's interesting. I had this necklace last year and then it busted open. Like the thing about these necklaces, guys, I have one. I'm wearing a different one right now. Is that once you have your breakthrough, then the necklace, actually explodes and the beads go everywhere. Yeah. And I was in your truck when that one broke, and I do feel a lot like very much like I accept the greatness within me. I feel like that was what my last year was all about, was reconnecting at a deep level with that core, like, divine, powerful feminine force inside of me. And that was like really getting back in touch with the greatness within me and being totally unapologetic about it. And I got challenged a lot last year to, there was people that came to kind of like show up to go, oh, are you sure? Like, and they were questioning it. Like, it was like my old identity was getting a little run for her money to have to, like, am I going to defend this? Am I going to try to defend this, or am I just going to own it? Right. Yeah. And, but so it's an awesome thing.
What you just said sort of inspired this thought, and it really is. So know this about the process of unlearning. One of the reasons it's so freaking effective is that once you do the thing, once you unlearn the belief that was potentially keeping you at the level that you're at, and you're like, oh, yeah, why did I ever believe that? Yeah. And so now you start moving. So now the next belief becomes super obvious. Like, well, why wouldn't I ever have considered, that I can make $50,000 a year more than I was making, or pay myself that much, or whatever the belief,
it's like, of course.
So now what happens is life will, I think you call it testing. I don't believe it's testing, but life will present you with
it's presenting opportunities.
Yeah, it's gonna create a conversation with somebody, and that conversation won't be comfortable.
Yeah, I always say, like, if I pray that, like, I pray so much, like, God, I want this, like, deep connection with my children. I want to become, a better mother. I want to be a better leader. Like, I can't tell you how many times I prayed this year about becoming a better leader. Yeah. And it's like my whole year was like stuff that kept coming up with how to manage my team better. I had to have, like, a lot of difficult conversations this year. And so, I mean, I'm not looking at it as a test in the sense of, like, God or the universe is punishing me. It's like God and the universe are saying, okay, Christine, you want this. Now you get to present yourself. So now you get to be the reps. Yeah, you get to be the person. You're asking to be a great leader. Yeah. Well, a great leader has these types of conversations and doesn't freak out if people are going to like them or stay or not, and doesn't get hot and reactive, but is able to, like you said, hold the ground, be steady. And remember having to have a lot of those conversations. And I was calling you before, I was meditating before, because it was like the new me knew my old self would have been, hot, reactive, fiery, and putting all these labels to it. So I had to do the things, the practices, like the meditating, the being still, the like really reflecting back on what's their story, where are they coming from, and also being okay with just holding a standard and expectation, which was me like stepping up in like not proving, but allowing the new identity to do her thing.
That's literally what it is.
allowing the blueprint to do its thing.
Yeah, I mean, if you're at the beginning of the year and you're like, I want to lose 20 pounds, right? Or I want to get in better shape, or I want to be able to run a 5K, or whatever the thing is, what does that mean? Well, that means that you get to go sweat.
Yeah,
right?
That means that when your friends
you get to make hard eating decisions or whatever, and that becomes the practice. Like, that's life now giving you the opportunity to
master.
That's the thing that you do,
yeah.
Because you no longer believe in the old version of yourself that was 20 pounds heavier or whatever, and so that's an easy analogy to get. Like, we all have been.
I think everyone can relate to that, but people were like,
but when it applies to your relationship with your kids, like, I want to be closer with my children. Well, guess what? That doesn't mean that you just get to sit down and like Netflix and chill for the weekend. Like, that might mean that you have to have some challenging conversations with those kids or go through a challenging time. That's what will bring you so much closer. That's where the growth happens. That's where the real growth is. Yeah. Or in the relationship, right? I mean, whatever. You want to have a deep, close relationship. That means you get to go all in and like do the work to clean up the energy.
And sometimes we have to clean up more energy.
Yeah. And the more you're growing, like, the closer you want to get, like, guess what? Like, the more of that stuff you're going to get to grow through. The benefit is there, like, you're going to love it. But this is where the unlearning process is so important, because I can unlearn the things that make me resent the person or resent anybody, even while we're going through the shit together, because we're just clearing those stacks of emotional energy. So that was a big one for me. Just this morning, like, I woke up, we had coffee, and I was just like, the coffee plus the alcohol and the late night from last night being New Year's, like, triggered anxiety. Now it's almost like I gotta go. Well, life presented me an opportunity to help me remember this is how you feel when you feel like you've got to go. So foundationally, what do you get to do? And this is what came through when you're running in the woods. Is like, you get to go make yourself a priority. That is a foundation. Get out of like whatever this funk is in order to get out. Like, you go get in the woods, you go run, you move your body, you do your burpees, like, you scream, you do your affirmations. Like, it gave me the opportunity to practice every foundation that keeps me sane.
And so on my side, right, I see Mark getting anxious. And when you're in a relationship with someone and their energy shifts, it's like you feel your energy shifting too. And when I get agitated, you feel it and stuff like that. So I could sense that he was like, I'm like, he's getting agitated, or, he needs to, I could tell like something wasn't settling. And then I needed to meditate as well. I know this about myself. I got to get in nature. I got to meditate. And so when we were running today, I was like, okay, we're going to go do this. And then I said I was pacing myself a little bit further back. I was creating some space between us because I felt like you just needed to like run on your own a little bit and stuff. And I needed to like just run and like breathe and talk to God and think about what I was feeling in my body. And then I stopped. You kept running because you were ahead of me. And then, so it's like, it isn't about me. Like, his energy, his stuff that's going on, that old me from not this past year, but like a year ago, like the old relationship blueprint would have like probably picked a fight at that point, because I would have been like, why are you being an ass, you're being distant, what the hell's wrong with you? I probably would have said a lot of things like that in the past, right? And I would have perceived that nervousness as a sign of weakness, like, why can't you just get your shit together? That would have been something that would have, but I see it and I can recognize it, and I can also empathize with it, because I'm like, I know what it feels like to be anxious. I know what it feels like to need to rebalance my body. And so it's like, what do you need? But then when you were running ahead, I was like, I just need to stop and meditate, because I wanted to really meditate on what my word for this year is. And I've been thinking a lot about flow. That's actually why I bought this picture of the ocean, and I have it, like, everything for me is about flow. There's a picture, yeah. and just ease and like really moving into a place of trust and like surrendering and letting the flow of, life and the universe like do the magic that it does, because it's shown up in such big ways. And so as I stopped this morning to meditate, and I was like, what is my word? Like, show me what my word is. And I was actually, okay, y'all, I'm a tree hugger. So I had my hands on the tree and it was snowy, and it was just like stillness, the stillness. And I was like, stillness? Come on, give me a better word, like, like flow and stuff. And it's like, shh, stillness. In stillness, you get all the answers. In stillness, you get all the clarity. In stillness, you get given your next steps. In stillness, you're able to see what you can't see when you're rushing. In stillness, you're able to hear what you need to hear. You're able to, and so I've been doing a lot of work around, shifting energy slightly. And so it's funny because my thing was about stillness and just observing and allowing energy to start moving and playing with it and trusting it. And I could hear him off in the distance. I could hear you screaming during your ritual. And it was like, he had to run fast, scream, he's doing burpees, and I'm like breathing and meditating, and it was perfect because I was like, this is what I need to get rebalanced. This is what you needed to get rebalanced. And we can both get these amazing results and outcomes and things that we desire very different ways. So one way of goal planning or goal setting is not cookie cutter. And this is why I'm like, again, anti-goal. You got to really start to discover where you're at, what you desire, and develop the new way that is going to allow you to have the balance so things can start to show up.
Indeed.
Yeah, that's what I think.
It's time to unlearn, you guys. It's 2020.
Yes.
If you continue to just bring all of the stuff from the past into the new and just set new goals on top of that, and you're going to find yourself spinning back in the damn hamster wheel faster than you know. And in 15 days or 30 days, you'll look back and like, do I really want that goal anyway? Right? Yeah. So we have to do this inner work. We have to do this unlearning work and just challenge those belief systems. So what would I get to believe in order for 2020 to be better?
Yeah.
To be the next best version of me. What would I get to believe about myself? So
I'd love to hear from you guys. What's come up for you if you're listening to this on YouTube? Comment below. Would love to hear from you guys. If this resonated with you, please share it with a friend. And we're going to put some links to some things that are happening. We have a couple live events coming up. A 2-day event coming up in the spring, and our week-long retreat that happens several times a year. The next one will be in February, which is a deep unlearning, true unlearning, full support for a couple months around that. And there's also some links if you want to have a conversation about some of our coaching experiences and you really want someone to help guide you through this process. We are here for you. There's a couple different tools. You guys check that out. Our Aligned Experience Coaching Program is running year-round, and so you can apply to have a conversation to discuss that.
Easy stuff. GreatUnlearningProject.com.
I love it. All right, you guys, so let's rock this out. Let's head into 2020, getting raw and real. So I think today was just about, radical awareness.
Bring it on.
Bring it on.
Let's go get it in 2020, you guys. Happy New Year.